Hey, what is going on, guys? The SS Ultimate Goku back another video. Um, so once again, my last video on this, the Brian Flores lawsuit situation. We've seen some interviews that he's given on ESPN. He's gone on a couple of interviews since then, different various networks. Um, the Brian Flores thing. I mean, I don't know where it's gonna go. Um, but I said like in my last video, um, they need. I really would like to know where this is gonna go. I honestly, I mean, the way the lawsuits recently have been going on the NFL as of late, it leads me to believe that this isn't gonna go anywhere. Just because the NFL just seems to be able to buy their way out of lawsuits. I mean, if there was one lawsuit I thought would would go somewhere and would actually go to court, it was that St. Louis one that was ultimately settled out of court the first day of mediation, which was just ridiculous. Um, it ruined the city of St. Louis's chances of ever getting an NFL team again, which to me was just insane in itself. Um, and apparently it was the wrong move anyways, because now you got the Rams in the Super Bowl. So yeah. But anyways, Brian Flores. So look, a lot of the people have since that have come out that Brian Flores has put allegations against have virtually denied these claims. Um, so my opinion, out of all the cases, I think he has the most chance of succeeding in is the Giants one. The Giants one, he's already shown evidence that Bill Belichick thought he was talking to Brian Doyle, who ended up becoming the head coach for the New York Giants. Um, he showed text messages that from Bill Belichick. He showed that Bill Belichick thought he was texting him, but he was actually texting Brian Flores, thinking it was him. Brian Flores had said that, he was going to interview the next day for the Giants job. Bill Belichick congratulated him, thinking it was Brian Doyle who basically got the job. And basically, Brian Flores was essentially being brought in to basically be, basically just brought in so they can fill the check mark for the Rooney Rule. Because the Rooney Rule requires you to basically interview two minority coaches or coaching candidates, African American, Hispanic, etc. So that's what the Rooney Rule is. The problem with the Rooney Rule, again, as I explained in my last video, is that you can interview. You're required to interview at least two minority coaches. However, you literally don't have to hire them. So you can interview them and literally have no intentions of hiring them. And that's really what the case was with this New York Giants whole interview process. Pretty much Brian Doyle was pretty much a shoo-in to get that job for the New York Giants because the assistant general manager for the Buffalo Bills was hired to be the actual general manager for the New York Giants. So obviously there was already a connection from him and Brian Doyle, who was the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. So, I mean, it was a pretty much open shut case. So, yes, you can argue that, yes, they brought in an African American guy to be interviewed to get the checkmark quota off from the Rooney Rule requirement. Especially since, supposedly, he was supposed to come in an interview the day after Brian Doyle had already interviewed. So they had pretty much probably already made up their mind there. Which, again, is the problem with the Rooney Rule. Because, again, if you're going into a job interview, and literally the person schedules you, the manager schedules you for an interview, but literally they have no intention of hiring you, okay, why would you go for the interview? Why would you go for an interview if they have no intention of hiring you anyway? If you knew already that they weren't going to hire you, but they're setting up an interview for you, you know, to get this job, even though they have no intention of hiring you, why would you go? Exactly. Makes no sense. And that's why the Rooney Rule is flawed. It's just stupid. I don't think the Rooney Rule should be ditched. I said in my last video it needs to either be ditched or extremely revised, but I lead more towards the extremely revised thing because I just think the Rooney Rule is so flawed badly. It's so flawed badly. And again, you know, I don't know what they can do, since obviously owners and GMs are going to hire who they want regardless. But they're going to hire whoever they want at the end of the day. But I think it needs to seriously be revised. I don't think it should completely go away, because if they get rid of the Rooney Rule outright, then you're just going to see it even more happen, and you might not even see any African American coaches get interviews. So I don't think it should be completely gone, but they need to seriously do something to kind of rectify that. But like I said, I think the Giants lawsuit that the lawsuit he has against the Giants, I think, has more merit because of the thing with Bill Belichick. And one of the things I would like to know is, how did Bill Belichick know that Brian Doyle was getting hired by the Giants? Like, he's the Patriots head coach. He doesn't work for the Giants. He works for the Patriots. So how did he get the 411 before anyone else did that he was going to get hired, when it was not even officially announced yet that he was going to be hired as the Giants head coach? Like, this was not even public information. I mean, everyone knew it was going to happen. Like, we were all speculating on it, but it wasn't official yet. It wasn't made official by the Giants at this point when Bill Belichick texts Brian Flores. So, you know, how did Bill Belichick know about that? So, you know, when he doesn't work for the Giants. So, that's an issue in itself. The Miami Dolphin allegation of, you know, the Stephen Ross, the owner, wanting to pay Brian Flores $100K to intentionally lose games and tank in his first season with the Dolphins. I'll say this right now. If that allegation is true and they have evidence to back that up, they haven't showed that yet, but if they have evidence to actually back that up, they said they do, but if they have evidence, you know, Stephen Ross needs to go. Like, he needs to sell that team, and he needs to be out of the NFL, because that is just absolutely unacceptable for someone to intentionally want to lose games. That's just unacceptable. But I am curious to why he didn't show anything right off the bat. Like, he did show the Bill Belichick stuff, so why did he show this? So there's something there. As for the Denver Broncos lawsuit, in my opinion, again, I'm no lawyer. This is just giving me my opinion based on the stuff that we've seen so far. Obviously, my opinion can change at any time if we see new stuff and new information comes out. But in my opinion, the Denver Broncos lawsuit that Brian Fangio, or I'm sorry, why did I say that? Brian Flores, lawsuit against the Broncos and John Elway, really, you know, I think that one has the least merit, in my opinion. And again, my opinion could change if we get new information, but as of right now, I think that one has the least amount of merit because of one reason. We don't have any evidence of the interview. Like, we don't know what Brian Flores and John Elway were like in this interview. We can only go by what they both have said. Unless it was videotaped, and we can see John Elway and see Brian Flores and what their body language is and what they looked like at the point of the interview, then I can't say like definitively if Brian Flores is telling the truth on this or if John Elway is telling the truth on this, which John Elway has vehemently denied what the allegations that Brian Flores put against him. So unless we have something like that, unless we have eyewitness accounts or something like that, someone that was at the interview that could corroborate Brian Flores' statement, that's the only way I could see that case really going anywhere. Because again, I mean, do we have any evidence to prove that the interview went down the way Brian Flores said it was? Now, of course, the interview, another reason too, is the Denver Broncos allegation happened 3 years ago. Like when this is before Brian Flores became the Miami Dolphins head coach. This is when he was also interviewing for the Denver Broncos head coaching job at the same time he was interviewing for the Miami Dolphins head coaching job. He was a leading candidate for both, but ultimately the Broncos ended up going with Nick Fangio, as we all know. That's where that story ends. Of course, he ended up getting fired this offseason. The same time Brian got fired. But, again, with that whole case, it happened 3 years ago. And again, we don't really have any really definitive proof. It's a hearsay, it's a he said, she said type situation. And that's not going to really count to anything. And also we have to take into account, John Elway is a former football player, okay? He's not just the business guy. I know we talk about business guy. He's not a general manager anymore, but he was a general manager at the time when all this stuff allegedly went down. But he's a former footballer. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He played with a lot of African American players. Okay, and he also stole a Super Bowl from my Green Bay Packers. But that's for another day. As all know, I'm still salty this day on that Super Bowl because we should have won that Super Bowl. We were the better team. I look at it as with that case, it's like, John Elway, again, former player, Hall of Fame quarterback, played with a lot of African Americans. He, out there with those guys all the time. And that is definitely an attack on his character. And it puts a different light on him. So I wouldn't be surprised if John Elway, because he vehemently denied any claims that Brian put forth. I wouldn't be surprised if he sues Brian. If he, truly feels that, his account is different from his account. I feel like this is going to be like a chain reaction for everybody. And if I was in Elway's shoes and I had that situation, I know that didn't happen that way, I'd be all on that. I'd be all on that right now. If I'm in Brian's shoes, you stick to your guns on that, because you put it out there and all I gotta say is he better be telling the truth about it, because he isn't, he loses all credibility. And the same thing with John Elway, he loses credibility. I don't know who's telling the truth. I'm not trying to pick sides here because I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. You weren't there. So, that's just how I take it as right now. But again, I just think the Denver case is going to be the least one that's going to be able to be proved. And the weird thing about this whole thing is, out of all of this, Brian Flores is actually still a finalist for the Houston Texans and the New Orleans Saints head coaching job as of right now. I don't know if he's going to get it. I think if he got a head coaching job, it's probably going to be for the Houston Texans, because the Houston Texans is a dysfunctional franchise, and I wouldn't put it past them to hire him. But also at the same time, I think it would be really, really awkward for him to be a head coach while he's suing the NFL and 3 other NFL teams. And technically, he's actually suing every NFL team because he's suing the NFL in general, which that is, in effect, every team. But he's specifically suing 3. So, like I said, I don't think he's ever going to coach again. But if he does get a head coaching job, out of the 2 that still possibly want him and still have him as a finalist right now, out of the 2, I would say it's going to be the Houston Texans that he gets hired from, because their 2 leading candidates besides him is, one, a quarterback who has no coaching experience whatsoever, which, if he does get hired by the Houston Texans, is offensive to not only minority coaches, but any person who has any ounce of small NFL coaching experience. Whether you're white, black, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Anybody who has any remote experience in the NFL as a coach, as just a coach, whether it be a position coach, a coordinator, whatever. If Josh McCown gets hired as a head coach for the Texans, that's offensive to everybody that's ever had any amount of coaching in the NFL for experience, since he has 0 coaching experience. And then the other guy, I think, is a Philadelphia Eagle offensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken. I forget his name. Those are the only candidates they have for the Texans right now. The Texans got a bunch of problems right now. They still have a quarterback on their franchise that has allegations on him, who didn't play the entire season because he wants out of there. That was before the allegations came up. Then the allegations came up, made it worse because they couldn't trade him. Couldn't have him on the commissioner exempt list because there were no criminal charges that were put forward on him. Because of that, Goodell said they weren't going to put him on the exempt list, the commissioner exempt list. So they basically paid him $10 million the entire season to not do shit. And I think this year, the Texans will have to pay him like $25 million, or whatever next year, if he doesn't play, because Deshaun Watson has a no trade clause, which basically means if he wants to be traded, he has to approve the trade, because that's what the no trade clause is. So basically, he gets to pick the team he wants to go to. Because that's the only way he'll waive the trade, is if it's a team that he wants to go to. And he's got all these allegations against him that, still hasn't been criminally charged for, by the way. And the civil suit trial still hasn't happened. So, once again, they're going to have a lot of stuff going on him. And again, the legal system doesn't follow the NFL schedule. They follow their own legal schedule. So, if they keep him on his roster, if they keep Deshaun Watson on the roster, the Houston Texans roster, without trading him, and keep him on, as an active player that's inactive every week, like they did this season, they're going to be paying him $25 million to do absolutely nothing. They paid him They paid him over $10 million to do nothing. They paid him $10 million for the whole season last year to do absolutely nothing. Free money for him. You know, that money that we'll never see in any of our lifetimes, but he got to see for free. And I know Brian Flores and Deshaun Watson have like some type of good connection. Like he wanted him to come to Miami. You know, they tried to get a trade for him, and it didn't happen, unfortunately. If Brian Flores gets that Houston Texans jobs, it does not matter. Deshaun Watson has made it publicly clear that he does not want to play another down for the Texans. So if Brian Flores does get that job, which again I still think is unlikely, because it will be a circus if he's a head coach for an NFL franchise while he's suing the NFL. That's like a conflict of interest, I would think. So I don't know if that would fly. Maybe that's what they want to do. Maybe they're telling Houston to hire him now. Maybe the NFL's telling Houston, you got to hire him now because that could possibly drop the lawsuit, you know, because it would be a conflict of interest. He's working for the job that he's suing right now. That might be a conflict of interest. I don't know. I'm no lawyer, so I don't know if that would be or not. But I just find it very interesting right now at where this goes and where this is going to go. Honestly, I think it's going to ultimately be settled out of court because I just can't see the NFL taking this trial when they haven't gotten all these other cases to go to trial. They always end up, and if they do go to trial and get a court date, they end up always buying it out with mediation like they did with the city of St. Louis. The NFL is $1 million enterprise at the end of the day, so they can always just pay their way to get out of it with the money they have. So that's my thoughts on this. What do you guys think? Do you think Brian Flores will coach again? Or do you think this is it for him? And where do you think this suit is going? What do you guys think about this? Do you believe him? Do you believe others? What do you think? Let me know. Comment, rate, flex for my videos. Please subscribe. And that's about it, guys. I am the S. Ultimate Goku. Peace!